Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. So today's guest is Dillon Erb. He is the co-founder of a company called Paperspace. The website is paperspace.io. Company is based in New York City. He's actually from Detroit, and we had a nice little conversation before because we're both University of Michigan fans. They've raised about $4.5 million in their seed round. Company actually went through Y-combinator in the winter 2015 class, but the company was started the prior spring, I think it was. So maybe 8 or 9 months before that. And let's welcome Dillon to the show. Dillon, how are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So usually I try to give like a quick little overview of what the company does, but since you guys are doing something pretty cool and somewhat over my head, I'll let you do that yourself. So just tell us about Paperspace.
Yeah, absolutely. So at a very high level, Paperspace is a cloud computing provider focusing on making it really easy to access computational resources in the cloud. So that ranges from running your full desktop computer in a web browser to firing up hundreds of computers for very complex tasks. So the general idea is to kind of open up cloud computing for everyone.
Are you the only guys doing this? Are you the only company actually doing computing in the cloud?
No. So cloud actually, there are thousands of companies working on this. They're big guys. They're the Amazons and Googles and Microsofts. But really, from a high level, computation generally is moving into the cloud, meaning it's less and less likely to happen inside of your office or at your place of business. And so that's a fundamental shift in how computing has been done and how computers have been used. And I think, there's a lot of money and time and sort of IT resources trying to figure out what that looks like. And Paperspace has one particular take on it, which is, we actually will provide a desktop computing experience that runs in the cloud. So you don't have to be a developer or sort of DevOps person. You can just be anyone with that's used a computer before can actually take advantage of some of the benefits that cloud computing has to offer.
Gotcha. Okay. So why did you jump into this? I mean, maybe tell us what were you doing before you founded Paperspace and kind of how did that lead into this?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually met Daniel, the co-founder of Paperspace, in graduate school. We were actually in building architecture. Within building architecture, we were both sort of on the technology side of that. And after graduation, we both went to go work for kind of the overlap of the engineering and architecture worlds. And so I was working on a piece of software with an a research team doing building simulation. And so building simulation is, you have these really complex models and you need to run them through, thousands of millions of computational cycles to make sure, eventually that a building's not going to fall over, although we were working on sort of a smaller subset of that problem. And at the time we were actually Dan was working on something called building information modeling, which is the idea that you can, when you build a 100-story building in New York City, you actually want to have a single computational model that represents that entire building. So what we were observing is that architecture as an industry was moving and still is increasingly to kind of the computational side where in order to make a decision, there are a lot of things that depend on that, on any decision that you make. So, most of the software in the building architecture world was desktop based, meaning I wanted to run my simulation and I had to go buy actually at the time I had to petition to the to University of Michigan to provide me with a $6,000 workstation, which took a long time to get. And even on that workstation, it took, a week and a half to run a simulation. So we started, I kind of independently, Dan and I were looking into what does this whole cloud computing thing, mean? And we were playing around with Amazon and we noticed something really kind of amazing, which is that there's this, you can go on Amazon or Google and you can fire up nearly unlimited computing resources and pay per hour, which is a totally different model than what we were used to, which is you have to petition to a dean to get $6,000 for a workstation. That said, what you had to be and still do to really unlock that power, you have to be a pro user. You have to be able to provision public and private keys and understand the command line pretty well. And we thought that, well, here's this architecture is just one of many universes where desktop computers are still very, very important, and sort of the desktop paradigm and GUI applications, graphical user interfaces. but they really don't take advantage of what cloud computing has to offer. So we thought, well, how do we get a full desktop experience to run as a cloud computer? And if so, what does the interface look like? How do we get people to use this, and why would they use that? And when you look at cloud computing, there's a lot of advantages. Mainly, you can pay per hour, you can scale up, you never have to think about storage again. You never have to think about really the operating system itself. It just works. It's always there. It's infinitely scalable. And that's really exciting because that's the exact opposite of how desktop computers work. And, we're still in a model from the 90s where you buy a big old workstation and it, sits under your desk and heats up your feet and, kind of gets in the way. We kind of set out to change that.
So who's the ideal customer for you guys? Is it someone like myself that spends all day on the internet using different SaaS applications? Is it a student? Is it an engineer? Is it a developer? Is it someone with an old computer, without a lot of power to it?
Definitely. So the answer is actually, because what we offer is just a computer like you would buy from Dell or HP or something like that. It just happens to live in the cloud. The use cases are very broad. And just to give some examples, we do everything from we do have students running Windows on a Mac. So they might have been using Parallels or VMware, and actually now they just run it through our web-based Windows operating system. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have people doing machine learning, where they're actually not even using Windows, but they're using sort of high-end Linux machines with GPUs that they can run their models overnight and not take up their local compute resources, like not take over their entire laptop. So, that's kind of one that we have individuals. We generally call them prosumers, or people that have a somewhat exceptional need for a computer. Like that, if you're just browsing on a browser, you might be fine with a Chromebook and you don't need anything else. But if you're using a Windows application or something that, might use up a lot of your local resources, it in many cases actually makes sense to just run that in the cloud. And if we make it really easy to fire up a new computer in the cloud, you might actually stand to gain quite a bit from that. So that's one application. The other one is more traditional. It's called virtual desktop infrastructure, or VDI, and there are a number of big technology players there that are more more legacy. Their take on it has been, and these are Citrix and VMware, and there are a few other competitors. And their take on it is, for virtual desktop infrastructure, if you're a company and you're managing, say, 10,000 desktops, you really don't want to give out a physical piece of hardware because it's costly. You have to manage it. It's very hard to do. So instead, you give your employees a virtual computer that you can manage centrally, thus making it possible to really control an IT infrastructure that's really expansive without actually going and fiddling with computers at people's desks.
Plus,
so we operate in sort of both realms. Sorry.
Plus, those computers that companies are purchasing are probably going to be outdated within a few years anyways, right?
Exactly, and that becomes a big problem for any company. Really, it's that they're on the 3-year refresh cycle. Things are changing, and what we provide is we say, hey, we're going to run this cloud computer for you. You don't have to think about upgrading it or downgrading it or anything like that. It's just always available to you. We sort of manage it. We manage the servers and we keep them running all the time, so that you can focus on kind of the management piece of it, or focus on the actual application that you're working on.
Now, do you guys run your own servers, or are you running on top of someone else's?
Yep. So we run our own servers. We have 2 data centers currently, one in East Coast of the United States, one on the West Coast, although Europe is actually very soon. The reason for running our own hardware is really that we can squeeze out more performance and on one end, and on the other one is that we can actually bring costs down substantially because we're optimizing for our particular use case. And realistically, what that means is you can actually buy a cloud computer that costs about the same as one that you would buy from Best Buy or something, which normally cloud computing is actually very expensive. So we get, we're able to bring costs down substantially, and very high level. That just helps us. We think that accessibility means a lot of things, and one of those is cost. And cloud computing is still very costly for a lot of people. And if we can bring that down, that opens it up to more people.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of Joule and host of the Startup Sense podcast. At Joule, we help entrepreneurs and startup founders build, launch, and grow their companies by providing superior technology, marketing, and consulting services. We help clients of all sizes, budgets, and industries. We put our clients in the best position to raise capital, grow revenues, hire employees, and maximize their profits. For more information or to set up a free consultation with our team, please visit our website at joule.net That's JOOL.net. Okay, so take us back to the beginning. I mean, so you started this company in 2014. How the hell did you guys exactly get started? Like, what was the the first hurdle for you?
Absolutely. So, the first one was sort of getting a lay of the land and sort of understanding the technology that would be needed to create a product like Paperspace. And we were actually really fortunate. And I think one of the big kind of realizations early on was that there were a number of technology trends converging that really made this type of thing possible, to run a computer in the cloud for the first time. No one had done it yet, or at least not done it very successfully or with the performance that people would expect. But generally what we were seeing was consumers were getting access to faster and higher quality internet, meaning, Google Fiber was, it's no longer around, but generally put a lot of pressure on ISPs to give people access to really high quality, fast internet, which is necessary for streaming a computer across the country. Web browsers were becoming, really serious platforms for tech, and there were a number of technologies that were making that possible. But for the first time, a web browser could actually run a real application without any serious performance hits. And then the other one was on the server side. There was this big push for cloud gaming, and out of that came new GPU technology that really allowed you to stream a computer or do high performance video streaming, at a speed that just wasn't possible a few years prior. So we were looking at these things coming together and thought, okay, well, what is it, if the technology is converging at this point where it might make sense to run a computer in the cloud, what key pieces do you need? So the first thing we created was sort of a standalone application where you could, we were running on top of Amazon. And actually, we were pretty agnostic. It could run on a couple of different platforms, but you would click a button and it would just fire up a computer for you and do the complicated things like provision the keys for you, set up the security, do all of that, and then just show you a picture of it in the web browser. And once we kind of had this proof of concept, we did sort of a deep dive with the first engineer that we hired, a deep dive into the kind of streaming protocols and what the most modern technology was for high performance streaming. And that's when that's really where the first demo came out. We started shopping that demo around and showing it to people that were interested and basically nonstop talking about it and saying, hey guys, this is really amazing. I have look at this computer here. It's running in Chrome and it feels just like, the computer right next to it. You can't tell which one's remote and which one's in front of you. So, we were like, this is cool technology. This has a lot of uses. And then, of course, as a startup has to do, you realize that you need to scale up engineers and resources, and you can't do this alone. So that's when we began seriously looking into sort of how you kickstart a company. And Dan and I, neither of us had really had experience in the startup space, but we had become familiar through friends and sort of associates and friends of friends, that there were incubator programs that we could apply for. There were grants, and really we just tried everything. We applied for a lot of these things. We, would take a meeting with anyone, or would try to get a meeting with anyone that would take one with us. And eventually, we put together the application for Y-combinator, and we heard back. They said they were interested. We went out there. Ended up meeting a lot of our big current advisors, people that we consider to be very important to Paperspace. We met them at through Y-combinator. They said, this seems like a good fit. They understood the technology side of it a bit. I mean, at the time, it was more of a technology demo with kind of looking for a business use case. We knew it was potentially huge, but kind of hammering that out was, it's an exercise for any startup to figure out exactly how a product and the market fit together. So, we decided as soon as, when that was offered, we thought it makes a lot of sense. California is a very good home base for an early stage kind of technology company. So we moved out there.
Let me just stop you for a second. So, I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
For the listeners, we've had on other Y-combinator companies before, and I don't know if everyone appreciates how hard it is to get in. The acceptance rate is well below 1%. They get thousands of applications and they're taking less than 1% of them. So what do you think it was about what you guys were doing that really, attracted them?
Well, I mean, for us, it was definitely a pure technology play, and I think that one of the big advantages of Y-combinator and the kind of people that still run it is that they have a strong appreciation for cool tech, and you can go too far with that, and some technology can be too cool that it doesn't ever find someone to use it. I think that they saw we had a solid tech demo that was, we were streaming a computer from New York to California and saying like, hey guys, we were at the interview and we just turned the computer around and said, hey, just stay with us for a second. And they were like, cool. So that was most of it. And, we heard back that same day from Justin Kahn, who was actually he head up the kind of cohort we were in. And he said, hey guys, you should come out to Mountain View. You should move out here. And so Dan and I moved out in I guess it was January of 2015. And I'm sure if you've talked to other startups that have gone through any sort of similar incubator experience, the idea is really that you move really, really quickly to establish, customers and market and technology and take advantage of all the resources that being in a place that has such a concentration of technology has to offer. So we worked nonstop. At the end of that, one of the things that you have is a demo day, and of course from there the idea is that you are introduced to investors and you kind of begin to be able to put resources behind the startup. And we were very fortunate. I think that in contrast maybe a little bit to sort of East Coast investing, definitely there is a strong trend for pure tech companies in Silicon Valley. And so we were introduced to a lot of great investors who eventually led to our kind of first seed round or our seed round, which after that we decided actually not to stay in California for a number of reasons. That the primary one was that the biggest consumers of this type of product that Paperspace offers, virtual desktops, are kind of based in New York. So there are financial services, insurance. These are the biggest consumers of it, and it really made sense. We were out here enough with meetings that we thought this is actually the home base for where we should be, as well as access to talent. There's no question San Francisco has an enormous number of amazing developers. But New York is I think, very close up there.
Just to confirm, you guys had a working product with some customers before you got into Y-combinator, right?
Oh, sorry, you actually broke up.
Okay. I just said, just to confirm with the audience, you guys had a working product with some customers before you got into Y-combinator, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we had, it was still a very, very early kind of we did a lot of things manually, and I would say that arguably the current product is not extremely different than the one we had going into Y-combinator. It's just all the pieces that you need to scale up, and that's what ends up taking up most of the time. Actually, one of the biggest ones, of course, is running hardware, like you asked about. I mean, the common knowledge is that you run everything on top of another cloud provider, and I think that we bucked that in the sense that we couldn't find a way to get the power and the price point that we needed. We're actually very fortunate. We were introduced to a guy in New York who had helped found a company called DigitalOcean, and he had some ideas on how you should run your own hardware, and he basically made the case that DigitalOcean would not have been possible if they ran on top of Amazon. And we came around to that idea, which was, if we run our own hardware, if we can figure out how to do this, and that's taking on a lot for a company whose core competency is really in software. If you can take this on, you have a number of key advantages. And it's a big investment that in the long run can pay off. And for us, to date, that means that it did take us a while to really get the scale. I mean, for a long time, we had been behind a wait list. We couldn't actually onboard enough users because we didn't have the computer capacity. But what that means now, though, is that we actually have a product that you can access our GPUs, or our servers for a fraction of the cost of any other cloud provider in the world. And so that was an investment that we made early on that I think was really core to the idea that we can open up cloud computing to a group of people that normally would never have considered it.
Is your strategy right now, call it marketing strategy or sales strategy, to go after individual consumers or to go after more of the enterprises?
So our kind of outbound sales effort is for sure a B2B, meaning that we are in contact with a lot of companies. They either find us or we reach out to them and say, hey, we have this product that might save you a lot of money. That said, it is important for us that anyone can go to our website and sign up for this product if they have a use case for it. That's not everyone. If you're just, if you only need Facebook or, you're kind of a casual computer user, you probably don't need this necessarily right now. But if you're doing After Effects or 3D modeling and the list is really, there are a lot of people that have what I would call, somewhat larger than normal demands on a computer. then it really makes sense to run in the cloud, and we think that we could be a good fit for that. So in terms of the sales effort, it's mostly finding enterprise, finding businesses that can use this and really integrate. But we also recognize that individual users have all sorts of use cases that we'd love to be able to provide.
How do you find your users? I mean, is it paid marketing? Is it PR? Is it doing interviews like this? Is it conferences?
I think the key thing is just getting in front of people, and for us that's a multi-pronged sort of a strategy, which is that when people end up using it and trying it out, they actually they find use cases for it that maybe we didn't even think of. So what that means for us is just get it in front of as many people as possible. We do we're actually investing quite heavily in our sort of our own content and providing tutorials and articles on how to kind of get started with some of this high-end computational stuff. Everything from setting up a 3D animation farm in the cloud, which is we have a lot of people doing VFX and animation, to a totally different vertical, which is machine learning, and we have tutorials on how to get started with how to use style transfer on a GPU machine in the cloud to make art, and we think that and actually most of these are sourced from the community. We say, hey, if you're doing something cool, let us know about it, and we'll pay you to tell us more about it and actually formalize it into an article. So we're doing that, investing heavily in content, and then the other one is we've been very fortunate. We do get a lot of word of mouth and referrals.
What percent of your team right now is technical, and then what percent is non-technical?
We're about 90% technical right now, and that's changing pretty dramatically right now, in the sense that the technology it's relatively very complicated, I think, compared to a lot of startups. I mean, all startups have very complicated problems to solve, but in our particular case, those were at least initially very technically oriented. I mean, we had to figure out how to stream a desktop from 2,000 miles away and do that under 60 milliseconds, and that's a technical thing that we had to solve. Right. We joke around that the only real competitor here is the speed of light, and that's kind of a hard thing to beat. So that's our problems were very much technical. We wrote our own, every single piece of our cloud infrastructure we wrote ourselves for performance and for scalability. So we have our own cloud provisioning, orchestration, our agent that lives inside the VM, our web-based receiver. So there are a lot of technology pieces there. But that said, we're very happy with where the technology is now, and really the investment is moving into sales, marketing, and in that area. It's good now. Let's get it out there and get people using it and really pushing it to the limits.
So what's been your recruiting strategy? How are you finding the right talent to join the team?
Oh man, this is a hard one. So for the technology side, we've actually we need people who are and have needed people that are very good at particular tasks. I mean, video streaming is one of them, and we've done everything that includes being very present at meetups to GitHub is actually one of our biggest recruiting tools, because we find people who are working on projects that are similar, and we are very technology oriented. We do well looking at code, and that's been, nothing that's been particularly scalable, I would say. So I think, the talent problem is very hard for any company. And we've been very fortunate to find people who they hear about it. They think, wow, this sounds like a really hard problem, which it is. We tell them that they have to meet the speed of light. They say, okay, let's try it out. And that attracts a particular type of engineer that we've been very fortunate to find.
So what type of engineer is it? I mean, are these people that are typically, freelancers, or are they with a bigger company and looking to, join a fast-paced startup? Or what type of people are they?
Yeah, I would say just generally, full stack, but with a particular expertise. So, we have one guy who was at Microsoft for 15 years, working on a number of different protocol projects. Another guy who's really been freelance his whole career, and he's actually based in Europe, and he's really, really good at JavaScript, kind of high performance JavaScript tuning. And so, it runs the gamut. I think the engineering sort of expertise is really the common thread. And, for us, there are so many pieces, and it ends up becoming, from a technology perspective, what we're building is a redundant, high performance distributed system. And those are hard to do. You can't really use off the shelf components. And so you end up having to build a lot, and that attracts the type of person that wants to build things from scratch instead of putting things together. And that's not to say that it's better or worse. It's just a particular, it's taking on a lot, and it means that, our technology stack has changed a bit. We use lots of different programming languages. We're not very, every piece has kind of gone through many iterations. We wrote our own billing engine because we wanted to be able to bill down to, the millisecond for usage to really build a billing engine that works for us. You can't just use Stripe off the shelf, things like that are big engineering problems in and of themselves. And that becomes a certain type of person wants to work on that.
Right. No, it is interesting. I mean, I can see where a lot of the, like you said, off the shelf solutions out there available to most startups don't necessarily apply to what you guys are doing. So you got to build it yourself from scratch. Yeah,
and the other thing is that things that we're working on might not even be sort of on the roadmap for some technologies. And just to give one example, we early on and still very much want to build a web application. So you can go to our website, you sign up for Paperspace, you open up your browser, and then within a minute you have a Windows computer there. And it has say 2 GPUs in it, and it's ready to go. You can do 3D modeling. Most people go full screen. They're in the browser, and then it looks like their Mac just turned into a PC. One limitation though, and we're very close with, we follow very closely how browsers are developing. One restriction is that you can't do hotkeys inside of a browser. Just to give one little example, if you type Control T, it's going to open up a new tab, and it's not going to send that command into the remote machine. So for that reason, we actually had to fork or create our own project that was it's basically a web browser, but it allows us to override the hotkeys. And so we do have a native application. And so, that's just one example of where our ambitions for what the web, what web browsers should be able to do isn't quite, it hasn't quite caught up with where things actually are. And there are a million reasons why that is the way it is. But, these projects like Firefox and Chrome are huge projects with a lot of competing demands. And as much as, we want everything to fit inside of it, sometimes we have to engineer our way out of a problem that, is just not going to change in the near term, even though I feel very strongly in the long term, we will consolidate everything into the web browser and everything will be web-based.
So I'm sure there's been plenty of good days and plenty of bad days over the past 3 years, but what is there like a best day or a worst day that kind of stands out?
Yeah, good question. Best days are definitely when we solve something that's been bugging us for a while, and it could be a small win. It's like I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but usually it's some small annoyance that we all realized was in the software and no one took it on themselves to fix it, and finally they did, and it's like, it's a huge win. Everyone's happy. The worst days are really, for us, I mean, we've had issues where we've had good types of problems where you have too many people sign up at once, and it kind of, we weren't ready to accommodate that many people, or other times when maybe the software didn't work as well as we wanted it to, and we can't figure out why. And so it's kind of, ups and downs. Software is, and I'm sure any sort of, new venture is filled with the highest of highs and lowest of lows. I think that 3 years into it now, or almost, more than that now, it's, I would say that the biggest change is that now when the big ups and big downs come, it's, they're much more tempered, because that, the highest of high can turn into the lowest of low pretty quickly, and you're just like, okay, well, this is just another day. We gotta power through it, and I think that's been an essential trait for the entire team.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the key traits of good entrepreneurs to try to keep an even keel. Even when things look really bad or really good, don't buy into it, because they can change very, very quickly the other way.
And my other thing on that would just be really quickly, co-founders are really important. I think they have an equalizing effect, which is really important. And I props to solo founders, but I don't think that Paperspace would exist without that sort of equalizing effect.
In terms of goals, right? Where do you see this company in a few years? Like what user number would make you really happy?
Let's see. I don't know. I think computers generally are, I think it's like $600 billion market for just all computers, and only a small percentage of them are in a cloud. So I think converting a good percentage of those into cloud computers would be great. Realistically, or kind of near term, it's really building out sort of the other things around a computer that make it really, a killer use case for people. So you could do things on Paperspace that it wasn't even designed to do right now. And I think that building out the tool sets to make it easier for people will really open up cloud computing. I mean, I think that the ambition here is that if you're an animation studio and you're only two people, you don't have the access to the same computing power that Pixar has or ILM or something like that. We want to be the one-stop shop where you can click a button and you can scale up. You got a big gig, a big commercial. You can do this on Paperspace for very easily and inexpensively. Or if you're a machine learning researcher and you don't have access to all the power that Google has in the universe, you still can get that through us. And I think there's a sort of accessibility thing where if we can make this product really usable and really good, then a lot of people will find all sorts of interesting and amazing use cases for it that we could never foresee. And we're already seeing a lot of those, and they're really inspiring.
And then talk to us about pricing. So I know it starts at $5 a month, which is kind of the storage fee, and then you guys charge per hour after that. So how many hours is the typical user actually using this?
I would say most people on sort of the individual use case end up spending under $15 a month for their combined usage, and that's even regardless of what type of machine they're using. There are definitely exceptions to that. We have people who are running sort of our high-end GPU models nonstop, 24 hours a day, and so we do have a monthly pricing, which basically says, hey, if you're going to allocate 30 hours a month, you should buy this one because it's much cheaper on average. But the good thing about hourly is, we have features that, for example, will automatically shut your machine down and things like that, so that you can, use it for as much as you need to use it and really not pay a lot of money for it.
Gotcha. Okay. That's pretty much all I got for you, man. Anything that we skipped over that you wanted to make sure that you got a chance to talk about?
That's it. This was super interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. And do you have any promo codes you want to share with us?
Yes, I did make one. $10 off to get started. Try out Paperspace. See if you can find your use case. SS 2017.
Awesome. Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And where can we connect with you online, or if any of the users or listeners want to shoot you an email? Do you have an email address that you can share with us?
Yeah, the best one, it kind of goes to all of us. It's hello@paperspace.com.
Okay, cool. And I saw you on Twitter. How active are you on social media?
The Hello Paperspace is getting more and more active.
Okay.
I'm sort of I help out with that effort.
Okay.
So that's where I would send people.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Really enjoyed chatting with you today. I feel like I'm a little bit smarter now than I was an hour ago, so I appreciate that.
Jonah, thank you very much. Take care.
You got it, man. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.